Hello and welcome to another episode of TV on TV. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo, and I'm here today with Sal Partan, who is a grocery store employee at Stop and Shop over on Harvard. And he's going to tell us his experiences over the last several months working in the store, making sure that people are able to get the groceries they need, but in this era of COVID. But before we do that, I do want to give you a few updates. I've got them handy since last week. Also, to let you know, we are pre-recording this. It is Wednesday evening. Right now, you will see this tomorrow, Thursday, at about 2:30, if all goes well. So some of the updates this week, the statewide mask requirement went into effect yesterday. And Brookline has had a requirement for some time. This is statewide. And if you are near other people, inside or out, and you are over 2 years old, and you do not have breathing problems, and you are able to put on and take off your own mask, you must wear one. Failure to do so can come with a $300 fine. And the reason we're doing this, an individual doesn't wear a mask so that he or she avoids getting sick. By and large, an individual wears a mask because people can be infected with COVID-19 and have no symptoms, but be contagious. And so wearing a mask helps make sure that if, God forbid, you have COVID-19 and don't know it, you're much less likely to transfer it to somebody else. We've heard about contact tracing. Contact tracing is when someone tests positive, they say, tell us every single person you've been in contact with over the last several days or even a week or two. And when you have to explain that, oh, I was hanging out with these people or I went to this store and I wasn't wearing a mask, that's going to be an uncomfortable conversation. And so you really want to wear that mask. It is required in town and across the state. There's been some conversation about economic reopening. The official date to reopen everything is in about a week and a half. And realistically, we're not going to reopen everything that soon. Governor Baker has been very clear we're going to do a slow reopening based on science, based on data, and that's not going to happen all at once, and it's not going to happen in a week and a half. But we are starting to see the easing of some restrictions. It's subtle. I forgive you if you haven't noticed it yet. Retail establishments are allowed to have more than the shopkeeper in the store if they are non-essential and closed for public. And that's important because it means they're more capable of fulfilling contactless orders that are delivered to someone's door, orders that are shipped, and so forth. You still cannot do curbside pickup, so you can't pull up and open the trunk and have them drop it in. That may happen soon, but it hasn't happened yet. However, we are starting to have those conversations. The governor has also made it clear that he will not be reopening different parts of the Commonwealth on different stages. I think that's the appropriate decision. The Commonwealth is relatively small. It's easy to drive from one part to another. And so opening up one part of the state but not another would simply lead to a rush of folks from one part of the state to another. And that wouldn't be helpful or healthy. Finally, some exciting news for a guy like me. The state legislature, which is operating under the oldest continuously used democratic constitution in the world, we, the State House of Representatives, held our first virtual formal session today. For the first time in history, we met as a body using the wonders of wires, Thomas Edison and so forth, and voted to pass a bond bill. It was not a very exciting bill. It's sort of a bridge loan because the state is not collecting income taxes until July 15 instead of April 15. We need a little cash to continue paying employees and so forth in this 3-month window until all of the taxes are collected. And so this is a bridge loan just to get us through those 3 months. It passed 157 to 0. It was not controversial, but it was an important step for the legislature and really an historic moment. And I was proud to be part of it. Without further ado, Sal Partan is a UFCW 1445 grocery store employee at Stop and Shop. Is it Stop and Shop number 1? I think it's called Stop and Shop number 1, right on Harvard. And Sal is going to give us the lowdown. He's going to help us understand what it's like to be in that grocery store all the time under the era of COVID-19. So Sal, welcome to the show. We're going to just get it off quickly. What's it like in there? What's it like being in that grocery store, not just for 20 minutes in and out, but being in there all day? What's that been like over the last 6 weeks?
Well, Tommy, it's changing every day. We have a rush of people in the morning. We have a rush of people at night. We have people expecting different things. All in all, it's been pretty easygoing, and it gets better every day. We have experienced a flux of people from week to week. We have more and more elderly people learning about our morning hours. We open at 6 a.m. now, which is different than ever before. We close earlier than ever before, which is different because we have more people rushing in, getting last minute things as usual. But I think the best part has been people's respectfulness of the changing of policy throughout the day. We are constantly changing how many items people can get of certain things, the amount people are allowed to take out, the bag policies, mask policies, so on and so forth. But people have been pretty understanding of those changes. I think our biggest challenge so far on a day-to-day basis has been keeping our shelves stocked with the amount of people who come in and the limited supply of things we're allowed to have.
So there was initially this thought that folks were hoarding, right? That there's this pandemic coming and it might get harder and harder to get out there. And so people are hoarding. Toilet paper was the first conversation, I'm sure everyone recalls. It turns out that actually, I'm not saying that there wasn't a single person who bought more than they needed, but in fact, it's not because of hoarding. What's happened is people are eating out at restaurants much less than they used to, but they still got to eat. And so people are eating more grocery store food week to week than ever before. And if that was just in one part of the country, it wouldn't be a big deal. But in fact, everywhere in the entire United States, people are eating more grocery store food and buying more at the grocery store. Similarly, with the toilet paper, they're doing their business at home. They're not doing their business at work, right? And so they're using more toilet paper at home. And so sure enough, grocery stores are having a hard time keeping things stocked because, you know, the toilet paper factories that make that Charmin, that nice soft toilet paper, they're running at full capacity. And people are using more of that comfortable toilet paper. You know what people are not using? That single-ply lousy toilet paper. You know, when you use a company restroom or a store restroom, people aren't using that as much because they're not going out as often, not going to work on location in as many cases. So can you tell us, like, what are the things other than toilet paper that you seem to have a hard time keeping on the shelf? And maybe are there things that now don't sell? Are there things under the pandemic people aren't buying? What's going on there?
Exactly. Toilet paper has been a big focus, but we've actually been low on several other things, such as milk, eggs. Our produce has taken a pretty big hit in terms of what people are buying, and our frozen vegetables have been out by noon almost every day. So it's actually the fresher food that's going even quicker than the toilet paper sometimes.
Interesting. And of course, it doesn't keep as long, so you can't, I mean, you could go in and buy 14, pecks of peppers, but probably not great. And so it's changing. But I also hear you say you're running out of stock in the middle of the day, which suggests if you're an evening shopper, maybe, especially on a weekday, take an hour, show up at 10 a.m. Is that like a relatively low traffic time when you still have some food on the shelves?
Yes, I would say that any time before noon is usually a good time. We have supplies that come in the middle of the day sometimes, but it's a little infrequent. So I'd say the earlier you can get there is definitely better, but any time before noon should have things on the shelves.
And there are senior hours. You said that you start at 6. Is it just that first hour? How long is it seniors only? And then when does it open up for everybody else?
Yes, so senior hours start at 6 a.m. sharp and they end at exactly 7:30 a.m. So seniors have about an hour and a half in which they can shop just themselves.
And how are the customers behaving? Right? I'm sure everybody feels stressed sometimes, and under times of higher stress, sometimes people aren't behaving in their best light. But what can you tell us about customers' behavior, and maybe give us an example of something maybe everyone regrets happening, customer behavior wise?
Well, I think that for the most part, one of the best things that we've seen is there's a lot more customer feedback. So when there is a moment of stress and somebody behaves in a certain manner, other customers make a point to come up to me or some of my supervisors and let us know, oh, so and so did a really good job. This person was very calm during a situation, however it may be. I think the biggest thing that has happened is that people are not quite paying attention to exactly 6 feet, and it causes people stress because they don't want to get sick, but that's about it. Other than that, it's pretty calm. People are pretty understanding, and customers, for the most part, have actually been very lenient with sort of the difficulties of running the day.
Good. And do you have any examples of particularly bad behavior that you've seen? Maybe somebody really pushing their luck or snapping. We want the dirt. Spill some tea.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing that I've seen is that when that sort of 6 foot rule is broken, it's not sort of a, hey, can you please step back, or I would like my space, or monitor your 6 feet. It's just shouting and a bit of that bad language we all use sometimes when we're frustrated, that kind of ordeal.
So it sounds like the takeaway is, if you really do want to be at your best at a grocery store, a thing to be thoughtful of is that 6 feet distance, both in working really hard to maintain it, and also if someone loses sight of it, maybe to help remind them in a calm and polite way. I've observed personally that many people seem to think 6 feet is as tall as they are, which is to say, I've observed people who are more vertically challenged tend to get closer to me than people who have their heads in the clouds. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's mere anecdote or a strange experience on my part, but I have noticed that. So be thoughtful about what 6 feet really is, and really try to be respectful of it. How has it been in terms of safety and protection for the employees? Is Stop and Shop providing PPEs? Do you feel like things are clean? Do you feel like you're at a low risk of transmission? Tell us the feedback there.
So, as expected with somebody who works with people on a regular basis, there is this worry of, oh, I'm at risk of overexposure. There's so many more people I meet that risk transmitting this disease to me. However, I will say Stop and Shop has been very, very diligent about providing more than enough gloves that we need, more than enough masks that we need, teaching us how to go about cleaning these masks. They have now put up protective barriers in front of every register, and we have a special wide range cleaner to clean the registers and the pin pads, which we're doing every couple of customers or as frequently as we can. So I feel that though we are in contact with more people, we are relatively low risk in terms of safety and communicating this disease.
That's good. And I will say, I know that I believe I read this, that Stop and Shop has recognized the hazard and in fact given the employees a little bit of a hazard pay bump, at least for the time being. Does that sound right to you?
That it does.
I'm a fan. I think you got to take care of the workers, and the fact of the matter is grocery stores right now have record profits because people are not going out to eat, but they still got to eat, right? And so because grocery store sales are so high, even if costs may be a little bit higher with all of the PPEs and the cleaning, profits are enormous. And so I'm glad to hear that Stop and Shop is sharing some of those windfalls. You mentioned the bag policy. I know there's a couple of policies that are different that I'm going to mention a couple of them, but I want you to really see if you can cover them all. One of the first changes that happened was grocery stores no longer had to accept deposit cans, right? The nickel for the can. Whether or not they still are accepting it, I don't know. I haven't been in the Stop and Shop, but one of the very first decisions made by the state was that grocery stores no longer had to provide the nickel if you brought the can back. They still charge you a nickel when you buy the can of Coke, but they don't give you the nickel back. And this hurts my kids who love to collect those nickels and bring them back. They're broke now, but we're saving them up. They're in the basement. They're going to bring them all in, I don't know, August, and they're going to be rich. So there's the deposit change, at least for the time being. And then I know there's been some changes about bags, both reusable and plastic, which I'd love to hear you tell us something about. And then if there are any other policy changes, let's have it. Let's know what's going on.
So there's quite a few policy changes. One, as you mentioned, is the bags. As of now, we are not using reusable bags in the store. You're not supposed to bring your reusable bags in the store. You're only supposed to use the bags provided by the store, which are free. We also have a change in sort of return policy. We're not currently accepting any returns, any rain checks. We're not handing out or accepting, and we're not making any exchanges. Beyond that, most of the policy changes sort of are about food and different things. You're allowed 2 waters, one of any major paper product, being facial tissues, toilet paper, or paper towels. You're allowed 2 eggs, 2 containers of milk. Beyond that, we haven't limited anything else yet. Another big one that people seem to overlook sometimes because it's not quite thought about as a bag is your carriages. People bring their own carriages into the store, which is fine for the most part, but if it is a fabric carriage, that sort of counts as a reusable bag. And it's been something that we're not quite accepting at the moment.
Excuse me. I'm on call all the time, but they can wait a few minutes. So that's really helpful. I confess I have not been in a grocery store since early March. I think on the one hand, I'm curious and I want to see what's going on. On the other hand, we use Peapod and a little bit of Whole Foods, Amazon delivery to fill in the gaps. We've found that we are no longer enjoying the grocery store experience, for better or for worse, but it keeps us out of the stores. And since we're home anyway, my wife and I, we can take a delivery anytime. We're always home. And so that's how we have been managing it. I think different people have very different strategies and very different realities. Do you feel like the people, you may not know this, but do you feel like the people who are shopping at a grocery store are shopping more often because some of the products that they want have limits? Or do you think that they're kind of coming as much as they used to? Or are people coming less often and really filling the cart? Has behavior changed that you've noticed in that regard?
Yes, definitely. I think that people are 100% shopping more frequently than they usually do. I think that as we've moved forward, it's gained some sort of normalcy again, and people are sort of digressing back to their regular shopping schedule as they adjust. But I think especially with that initial rush, kids are home, people are consuming groceries faster. So there is more of a need for that sort of immediate grocery shopping haul. But especially with items being limited more often, people are coming back, every other day or so, whereas usually they'd shop once or twice a week. Especially not having to work, they have more time to shop, and so it's not as much of a obstacle for them anymore.
Yeah, and certainly I don't know the details of any one person's experience, but I would hope that to the extent possible, people try to shop less often because it's fewer exposures, whether you drive or you walk to the store. When you're in the store, you're exposing people, and I get it. If you're out of milk, you're out of milk. But maybe try not to run to the store every time there's one thing you feel like you need. I worry that people are using this. I know some people. My father is using this as an excuse to get out of the house. He's just bored. And he used to like to walk around grocery stores before this happened, right? So my father will, figure out a recipe that has one ingredient he doesn't have just so he can go to the store and buy it. It's probably not the best way to do it. Obviously, everybody has different circumstances. And if you need to go to the grocery store, of course, you're very welcome to go to the grocery store. If you're not an older adult, maybe you probably need to wait till 7:30, but otherwise, fair play to you. But I encourage people, go to the grocery store when you need to. Try to reduce the number of total trips. Buy a little more when you're there. Maybe not of the limited products, but these other things, because we all need to continue to reduce our exposure and reduce the exposure of everyone else. And that's hard to do because we're social creatures. But to the extent you can, I think that makes sense. Now, many viewers remember about a year ago, UFCW 1445 was on strike. And I'm sure folks may not remember the details. Just to fill some folks in, Stop and Shop's, the holding company that owns Stop and Shop, which is a European company, was seeking to reduce wages and benefits across the Stop and Shop stores in New England. And something like 31,000 folks went on strike. It was pretty remarkable. Sal, I know you were at the picket line. I was certainly at the picket line. And how did it feel at that time? Were you nervous about it? Did you feel like this was really empowering? Tell us what it was like to be on strike.
Well, as a younger employee, it was definitely very empowering. It was something that I had never seen before. It's something you learn about in history class a lot. You hear about all these strikes. People talk about how important it was, but you're rarely ever there to see it. And it was incredible, the amount of people that showed up, people's commitment to the strike. There was nobody in the stores. People's commitment to stop shopping there. The local community brought food and coffee and drinks and snacks for people who were standing out for a while. It was an impressive moment of the entire community standing behind one thing, and we saw results from it.
No question about it. The strike didn't last too long. It spanned Easter. I remember there was this phenomenon where Stop and Shop was getting Easter candy that they just couldn't sell. I think I remember that. That feels about right to me. And but when it stopped, customers came right back, and employees got back to work with a better deal. And it sounds like Stop and Shop management has maintained that posture over the past year. It sounds like Stop and Shop is being more supportive. Does that seem right to you?
Absolutely. I think Stop and Shop has never paid more attention than now to the employees, to the workers and what they need. I think that especially throughout this pandemic, they've only shown more support for their employees.
Well, I'm really glad to hear it. Folks want to shop at a place that does well by their customers, but also does well by employees and well by society as a whole. And it sounds like certainly over the last year, Stop and Shop has been a good corporate partner, a good partner to the community, and that's worth mentioning. That's worth talking about. You may or may not know Treasurer Deb Goldberg, who is a Brookline resident. Her family used to own Stop and Shop, right? And so Brookline has this attachment to Stop and Shop, maybe at this higher level, the psychological level. And so it's really great that they're doing right by people, especially right now when customers need a little more, and certainly the employees are being asked to do more to put their comfort and their safety a little bit on the line. And it's not just about getting sick. Remember, there are plenty of folks at grocery stores whose kids are also not going to school or also aren't in daycare. And so managing the whole family is much more challenging when you work an hourly job and your schedule can bounce around. And because sales are up, right, my bet is hours are up. People are working, part-timers are working more, and everyone's pulling their weight. So, we've heard and we've heard a lot about, and we've celebrated folks like doctors and nurses and police and fire, and we should. And I'm glad that just plain old regular people working an hourly wage, doing the right thing, working hard every day, like those in grocery stores, are getting some recognition as well. I hope we'll continue to think about folks who we could say thank you to a little more often, more broadly, when we get out there and talk to folks a little more. And when you do say thank you with your mask on, you got to say it a little more loudly so folks can hear you, right? But Sal, I thank you without a mask, from me to you, and really from this whole community, to everyone at Stop and Shop and at Shaw's and at Trader Joe's and at the convenience stores and bodegas. It's all important, and we are grateful. And my hope is we continue to be grateful in the months and years to come, even as things get back to normal. The last thing I do on my show every week, I want to remind folks, you can call me anytime. My phone number is 617-872-8921. I don't call myself very often. 617-872-8921. My email address is tommy.vitolo@mahouse.gov. If you've got an issue or concern, you need some assistance related to the coronavirus or related to anything else, don't hesitate to give me a call. Sal, thanks so much for being on. And please tell your colleagues that we're grateful, and to get some more toilet paper in stock as soon as they can.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.